Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle of the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts.
Archlector George.
And Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
We continue our coverage of Best Served Cold, Joe's first standalone and the next First Law entry after the original trilogy. And on this episode, we review Sex and Death, and that's entertainment. So let's get started. As usual, we must thank you all for your support. Right, boys?
Yes, we love you. I think I've used that one before, but I don't care.
Okay, Harrison getting a little intimate there. Love it.
A little ooh.
Yeah, your continued support, especially in light of Harrison's harrowing brush with death.
I'll bring it up, Jeffrey.
You're gonna still be mentioning that in like a year.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, about that time that Harrison almost died because he couldn't take shit for
You're
a
like,
week.
we're milking this, Harrison. We're getting everything we can out of this. I don't want to hear you.
Basically, so thank you to anyone that's ever contributed to getting the podcast up and running. You know who you are. Thank you so much. And obviously, thank you to the people that listen consistently. You are a dedicated bunch, and we appreciate you.
The inconsistent ones, not so much.
The inconsistent ones, we're keeping an eye on you. And as usual, just want to remind you to follow us on all our social media pages. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Do we have a TikTok?
Well, no.
Yeah, you haven't posted in a while, right?
I haven't messed with it.
Okay. Well, and Facebook, and we are on Reddit, as you all know. You better know. So follow the First Law subreddit, the House of the Meme Maker subreddit, and we have our own profile. I still not clear if we can have people post on our profile. We have to make our own subreddit. I don't know if we want to do that, but either way, you know how to find us. So I will go ahead and we'll start with our first segment of the week. You know what time it is. This is Best Meme of the Week. Georgie boy.
Bam, 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 bam.
That is yours. Take it away.
We've got Tamil Ball back for the first time in a while. Absolutely great.
Oh shit. He's alive.
Yeah. And it's that scene from Star Trek Voyager when they asked them, like, are you two friends? And like, yes and no. And it's Logan and everyone else in the Fellowship of the Seed. Logan's just out there making friends all day, every day. Everyone else is just like, what the fuck? That's very good. A return to form.
Yeah, and somebody had asked, "Where's Brother Longfoot?" And then he responded like, "Where is that damn navigator?" Gotta love it.
True to form, he's not there for all of the important bits.
You would think he'd be there though when it comes to like friendship making and all that, but alas, he's nowhere to be found.
Because he's secretly plotting, as you know, plotting everyone's demise, trying to play it out, seeing which people he can take advantage of. He's playing the long game.
Yes, that's right. So him scouting ahead is just all bullshit.
Yes.
That entire time he was meant to be scouting ahead. He's like 50 feet away in a bush.
Staring at them. That's why he gets lost.
He did admit that hiding is one of his many talents. So
it's weird that he would mention that, don't you think?
I remember when Logan and him were in the alley. Logan's like, "Where the fuck did you go?" He's like, "My friend." I'm not even gonna do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm not gonna do it.
You're already gonna butcher the Italians this episode again.
Whoa, butcher! How dare you? You mean
bastardized?
Whoa, rude. I thought you're supposed to say, lend my golden dulcet tones to it, you dick. But okay, here we go. So we'll go on to our first chapter read through. Thanks for that meme, George. And so this one, ladies and gentlemen, this is a classic. This one's well known. Well, the next two actually, in the lore of Best Served Cold and in general, the First Law series. This is Sex and Death, and we are in Cardati's House of Leisure, and everything is underway. People, the party goers are going to the party, and we have the entertainers. They set up shop. They got the music going, the band that's not really a band. We have Friendly. We start off from his perspective, and he's manning the dice table, and he is more than excited, I think we could say, right? So excited to the point, he's counting everything. He's counting the women. He's counting the guards. He's counting the dice. He kind of can't keep track of what he's counting of, right? So far, what we see in the beginning part of this chapter.
There's just a lot going on, Friendly obviously gets pretty bad anxiety in big groups of people. So,
yeah. George, do you want to add anything to that little Friendly bit before we cut over?
No, I'm all good.
Okay. So then we cut over to Casca's point of view. And he's here. He's doing his job. He is doing his job correctly, I think we can say. He is the party leader, the ringleader. He's everything. He's welcoming people. He's directing them to go wherever their heart pleases, whether it's gambling, dice, cards, husk, ladies, whatever the case. He's directing them, alcohol, boom. He is excited for this. And then, as the ladies of the night, as we like to call them on the Circle of the World podcast, as they are, walking by doing their job, Casca is kind of doing like the hoo, and he's twirling his mustache and everything, and they're like, stick to the guest, and he's all right, sorry.
He's like, hey, take it easy, sweetheart.
So this Italian now has a Boston accent. Okay, got it.
Whoa. Huh.
Hey, sweetheart. So then Shivers comes out of nowhere, right? He sidles up to him and he goes, so who the fuck are all these people, right? They were told at least just 3 or 4 dozen at the most, right? A few armed but not keen to fight, but apparently there's at least twice as many there already that's there, and that's not counting the fact we're waiting still for the arrival of Ario and Foscar. And then Casca he's not reacting the way Shivers, I think, wants him to react. Casca is very like, I know, isn't this exciting? This is great, right? And Shivers is going, not for us, bro. How the fuck are we supposed to keep control of this? And Casca goes, what makes you think I have the answers? Look, in my experience, life rarely turns out the way you expect. We must bend with the circumstances and just simply do our best. Shivers is kind of just disregarding this. He goes, maybe 6 guards, weren't we told? So who are they? And he's looking at this group of men with, polished breastplates and, stud-padded black jackets and weapons and everything. And Casca goes, I was wondering the same thing. And then Shivers, at this point, he's freaking the fuck out, basically. He goes, wondering, and he has his arm on Casca's, he has his hand on Casca's arm, and he's squeezing it to death. And he goes, when does wondering turn into shitting yourself? And then Casca goes, I've always wondered, but funny thing, I just don't get scared. And he is not lying. He's in his element. He says that, vice and high living and danger, that's his element. That's where he is thriving. He fears old age, failure, betrayal, and looking like a fool, but he doesn't fear a fight, which is funny because he's always avoided a fight, right?
Yeah. And I like this little scene here between the two of them, too, because, Friendly is definitely not, like, in any shape or form like a coward, but, like, this is different to what he's ever had to deal with, and he's not been like undercover and things are not going to plan, and he's not used to having these kinds of plans go to shit. And so in his mind, he's just used to kind of fighting. So I like that Casca's, it's not only just Casca laughs in the face, in the face of danger kind of thing. It's also the fact that he's just experienced. He knows that probably something wasn't going to go right. And, oh, there it is. Okay, whatever. We'll deal with it later. And Shivers is like, what are we going to do now?
Right. And you know what? I also think there's an element of I think there's also an element of thrill seeking to Casca. It kind of makes sense if you think about it. The constant need to like get drunk all the time. Like he was always trying to chase something. Either it's a high from like a narcotic source or an external source of like violence, near death
Yeah,
experiences.
he's definitely chasing the dragon somewhere there, isn't he? And he's just so dead to the world. Like this is like a fun day out to him.
He's like, I can't get drunk anymore, but I mean, I could die any moment.
Yeah, and he's like, "Ooh, the potential for murder and mayhem. Tell me more." And then, as he turns away from Shivers, he sees that we have a couple royal guests. Ario and Foscar have entered, masked and everything. And Costco, he sweeps over to them. He goes, "Your Highness, we are truly blessed by your presence and everything." And Ario goes like, "Indeed you are. And by the presence of my brother." And he gets kind of waves a hand towards Foscar. And Foscar is looking pretty nervous, with his mask. And Costco goes like, "Oh, all right." He looks pretty reluctant too. And he has a mask on with the form of half of a golden sun, representing the brother-in-law, Therese, Giselle, and their sister, Therese, the union, king and queen. And then out of nowhere, Ario's like, "Oh, yes, also that of our mutual friend, Master Sulfur." And then we hear, "Less, I cannot say, so much to do, never the slightest peace, eh?" Harrison, I actually think you do the accent better.
Never a moment of peace, Captain. Oh, it
There
was
you
not
go.
Captain.
Well, it's not Captain, it's Costco, but still, whatever.
Never a moment of peace, Captain General of the Thousand Swords.
Jesus Oh,
I was just telling Jeff right before we started that I just love how he there's a lot of people that show up and there's lots of cameos in these books after the original trilogy. But the most cameo type person is your Sulfur. He pops up everywhere, and it's literally just to be like, "Yes, I exist. Bye." And that's it. That's all he does every time. It's so funny.
He literally just drops in. It's the funniest thing. It's so good. And then, he says that he has to go to Talon's tonight and speak to Grand Duke Orso, that they cannot allow the Gurkish a free hand. And then Ario's like, yes, of course not. Damn those Gurkish bastards. Yeah, okay. Great. Good journey. All right, bye. And then Foscar's like, "Good journey." He's like, "All right, calm down, Foscar. Jesus Christ." And then if we go back to Casca, and Casca goes, "Well, the two of you are most certainly welcome. Please enjoy the entertainers. All the entertainment we have. Everything is at your disposal. And your Highness will find, I think, a particularly surprising diversion in the royal suite for you and your brother." Wink, wink. And then Ario's like, "Yeah, see, there we go. Let's see if we can divert you from your cares." Right? And then Ario kind of turns because he hears the band, and he goes, "By the heavens, could that woman not have found some better music?" I can only imagine how bad they're sounding. Like, I imagine like an off-key accordion. I don't even know. And then the group of people parted to let the two brothers pass. And then a lot of gentlemen followed in their wake, including more of the men with the swords and the armor. So then Costco's like, So then he's like, he doesn't feel fear. That's a fact. But he does think about, he's like, you know what? Some precaution is good at times. So, because Monza did ask for control. And go ahead, Harrison.
I was just going to say, I just think it's great. Like he notes that at that point. So whenever Shivers is like kind of freaking out, like he really just had no concern. He just did not even care at all.
Nope, he did not.
It wasn't until he saw something else that he was like, I guess.
Yeah, I think this might be our limit here, about 50 people. I think we're good. So then he goes to the gate, and I guess there's a guard outside the gate. He taps the guard outside, and he goes, "No more in tonight, and we're full." And I guess there's more guards out there, but he closes the gate and just locks it. And the guard has a shocked face. And then Casca, he's a master of kind of just ignoring people, even after he's insulted somebody or what have you. So he just sweeps around and he goes, "Friends, we need to have something livelier to the band." And he's like, "We are here to entertain." And then we cut over to Morvir's perspective. But before we do, boys, do you want to add anything else to that bit with Casca?
No, I'd like you said, like, he's just so fucking charismatic. Everyone just does what he says. Like, he can just insult them to his face. And like, "No, you got to stay outside, you fucking ugly cunt." And it's just like, okay. Nobody does anything to stop this madman.
We can't keep letting him get away with this. Harrison, you want to add anything or you want to move on?
No, we can move on. I think we covered it well.
All right, cool. So like I mentioned before, we cut over to Morvir's perspective, and him and Day are in the darkness of the attic, peering through the holes that they made. And first thing he says is, "Why is there so many people? Something is awry." And then what?
It's just the way that Stephen Pacey says that in the audiobook. It's just
How
so
did he
funny.
say it? How did he say
It's
it?
like, "Something is awry."
Awry. And this is him saying this out loud too. This is not him thinking it.
Yeah, he's just saying it for his own benefit. He's just trying to entertain himself.
Yep. And then he knows that he can tell he sees a gout of flame erupt somewhere, and somebody's, there's people clapping. So it's the incredible Ronco. We remember him. Morvir is obviously disapproving of this guy. He goes, "Jesus." And then Day hisses at him and tells him that someone's coming. So they look and they see there's a group of 8 people coming from the stairwell, and all of them are masked. 4 were definitely guards, and then 2 were even more obvious women employed by Cardates. And it was the final 2 men that, interested Morvir. And it's Ario and Foscar. And then he notices that Ario bowed low to Foscar, was laughing, right? And he went down the corridor to the second door, and those 2 women were with Ario. So it just left Foscar to approach the royal suite. Now, Morvir notices that something's wrong here. And this is where, again, he says something is most seriously awry. So wonder what it could be. And then so we cut over now to Manza's perspective. And it's Manza and Vitari. They're in the bedchamber, the royal suite. That Manza is making note of that the bedchamber looks like an idiot's idea of what a king's bedchamber might look like. Everything is over patterned, gold and silver thread everywhere. The bed was a monstrous 4-poster, all that jazz, right? And then Vitari they're all standing, they're posed seductively, you could say, on either side of the bed. And Vitari makes a joke that that music's giving her a headache. And then but Manza is kind of feeling the pull towards the husk here as well, right? And then Vitari makes a joke about it. He goes, "Oh, it's enough to drive a woman to smoking," but Manza says, "Mind on the job." But I feel like that's more towards Manza herself than necessarily to Vitari, because we don't ever get an indication that Vitari, has a hankering for opium, right?
No, we don't. Not at all.
Yeah, it seems like, Vitari's pretty in control of herself, I think. So, which Manza was as well. But, that's what drugs does, kids.
Just say no. And they hear footsteps, and so they're like, "Okay, let's get ready." And and then Manza goes, "It's a bit late for second thoughts, huh?" And then Vitari goes, "Well, unless you decided you'd rather fuck them instead." And Manza goes, "I think we'll stick to murder." And the door opens, and a man steps through into the room, Foscar. He was tall and dressed all in white, his golden mask in the shape of half a rising sun. Right, okay, we know this. He had an impeccably trimmed beard, which failed to disguise a ragged scar down his chin. Interesting. I don't remember Foscar having a scar. Monza blinked at him. He wasn't Ario. He wasn't even Foscar. Vitari goes,
What?
shit. Recognition hit Monza like spit in the face. It wasn't Orso's son, but his son-in-law. None other than the great peacemaker himself, his august majesty, the high king of the union. Oh, shit,
Dun, dun, dun.
folks.
It's our boy.
It's our boy, Giselle and Luthar.
It's just Alden King now.
Well, you know, whatever. You know what to do, Harrison.
You fucking broke me. I didn't expect.
Do it. Do it.
Captain Luther, you're my man.
He has returned to us, our Prince of Nothing. Oh, we see why there's so much more armed men in the party than that was expected previously, right? Because it's not Foscar that shows up, but in his place, Giselle. And so this is going to make things, as the kids say, pop off. And let's get ready. So we cut over to Casca's perspective again, and he asks Shivers if he's ready, and Shivers goes, "Yep, uh-huh." And I like how Joe does this thing. We've talked about this before. He kind of repeats or recycles certain phrases, turns of phrases or sentences. We earlier Monza had and Vitari had said, a bit late for second thoughts. And Shivers says the same thing here too to Casca. He goes, "Bit late for second thoughts." And then Costco says the same thing. He goes, "Unless you decided you'd rather fuck them instead." And he goes, "Gentlemen, ladies," he just completely glosses over what he just told Shivers. And I apologize. We're not in Casca's perspective. We're in Shivers' perspective. But then Casca brings everybody to the circle, right? And he goes, "Get ready, folks, for you're in the gravest danger." So what they're going to do is they're going to talk about a reenactment. And, basically Casca goes, he says, "For your education, edification, and enjoyment," we love alliteration, Cardati's House of Leisure presents to you the infamous duel between Fenris the Feared and Logan Nine Fingers. Name drops, boom, 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 boom. And then one of the drunk audience members goes, "Hey, but he's got 10 fingers." And then Shivers he's not laughing. He's nervous, he's sweating just because he's got to put on a good show. Greylock looks like he's taking this pretty seriously. And then, Casca tells them that, tells the audience to make room. And then, they get ready. And then Shivers is he's hoping that his plan goes well, that put on a real enough show that people can be entertained, but distracted by, that what might be going on the side, And, he's thinking about, like, the duels he's seen before, especially the real duel, Fenris the Feared and Logan, and just how that was insane. And now he's reenacting this duel. And then Casca shouts, "Begin!" And then Greylock basically roars and comes charging forward and swinging his club. Shivers is kind of taken by surprise here. He's not expecting this. He goes, "What the fuck is going on? This is not exactly what we discussed." But it seems like Greylock is taking this whole series. He's a method actor, apparently. Greylock is.
He's getting into the role.
Yeah, he's getting into his role. But Shivers is the last sentence of his part here says that he suddenly had a bad feeling, even worse than before. Do you guys want to talk about this little Shivers excerpt real quick before I move on?
Just to see how nervous he gets, like, just even everybody gets stage fright, even if you've been in a battle.
Yeah, it's kind of like I like how he kind of plays it out too, with how he's thinking about the moment, within this circle. He was like, "Oh, I was there" and everything, and it kind of gives him like this, which we've seen before from him and other characters, this kind of PTSD flashback of like, "Oh my god, this big moment." Like, it's almost like he doesn't feel like he should be the one in that place. Like, he feels like he's being dishonorable, not because they're just faking the circle, but because, the fact that he's playing the Bloody Nine. I think that bothers him in a different way than it would a lot of people. Like, he's having a hard time separating the two. And he thinks that Greylock is the one not separating the two, but Greylock knows what he's after, and Shivers definitely does not. And I just like how there's a lot of subtleties in that I didn't really catch the first couple times I read it, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah. You're right about that. And then so we'll get back to that, but for right now we cut over to Friendly's point of view, and he's manning the dice table, and boys, he is in his element, isn't he? He is happy, but he's also kind of like intoxicated.
The best place to be.
Yeah.
And every time he says it, like, I like how he goes to say 2 and 4, and like we can fucking see the numbers. And he's just like so perturbed. He's like, why is nobody letting me do what I want to do? It's just,
Yeah, and it's the guy, especially with this guy, the crescent moon mask. He's like, the dice hate me, and then Friendly, he rolls them again, and he goes, he says 5 and 3, and he goes house wins, and then the another guy with the mask that looks like a ship is like, oh, it seems to be making a habit of it. These drunk guys complaining about the fact that the houses keeps winning, and. But Friendly is in his mind. He goes, "This is just how the numbers are falling."
I can't do anything about it, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, he's kind of right though too, isn't he?
Yep. And then, but there's a lot going on here for Friendly. A lot of stimulation. The noise, the smell, the perfume, sweat, wine, smoke. Crowded room, everything. So he's kind of just. He loves the idea of running his dice table, but there's just a lot of sensory overload for Friendly right now. And so we cut back over to Monza's point of view, and now Giselle is looking from Monza to Vitari, and then back. Handsome, regal, and most extremely unwelcome. And so Giselle says, "Look, I mean no disrespect. But one of you will be more than adequate, and I have always had a weakness for dark hair." Aww, that's a callback to RD.
Aw, tear and a little weird. Just a little weird.
So he gestures to the door to Vitari. He says, "Look, I hope I'm not going to offend you, but I'll make sure that you still get paid." And Vitari
What a
goes,
gentleman.
"Oh, yeah, what a gentleman." She goes, "Oh, how generous. Curse my red-haired mother. But she's happy to get the fuck out of there." And then, Giselle's kind of awkward. He doesn't know what to do here. He goes, "Most pleasing room." And then
Mons is just like, you're easily pleased.
And then he says, "Yo, my wife would not think so." And then she does say, like, few wives say good things about their husbands. That's why they come to us. And then he says, "No, you misunderstand. I have her blessing. My wife is actually expecting our 3rd child. And therefore, well, that hardly interests you." So
He's such a sweetheart. He's like, no. My wife said it's okay for me to whore. No, please. I don't want you, the whore, to misunderstand my intentions.
Yeah. Plus, I think we can kind of extrapolate that they have an agreement. Like, okay, she's pregnant with her 3rd kid. It seems like there's not, they both can stop with the whole fornicating, right?
Well, I'm not sure Giselle's 100% on that same page as Therese is, but yes.
Well, it seemed like that's where I thought it was leading. He has her blessing. My wife is expecting our 3rd child, and therefore, then he stops.
No, of course. I just mean, like, I'm not sure Giselle's at the point yet where he realizes that he's not getting any more at this point at all. So,
oh, that part, yeah. You're right about that. So, so then Giselle, he's like, "Hey, do you want a drink?" And she goes, "I'm fine. Do you want one?" He goes, No. I guess he wants a drink." So Monza is kind of going through her choices here in her head, either bed him or murder him. Neither one had much appeal. Killing Ariel would make trouble enough. To kill a king, ooh, that's something else. That is something else. When faced with 2 dark paths, Stolicus wrote, "A general should always choose the lighter path." And so she was like, in her head, she goes, "I doubt these are the circumstances he had in mind, but I guess it doesn't really change much." And then she kind of notices that Giselle's awkward, nervous. and he says that it's been a long time since he's visited a place like this one. So we can imagine he probably hasn't visited a brothel since before he met Artie.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah. So then what she does something pretty smart here, something to calm you down here. And she gives him the pipe of husk. And he goes, "Oh, I'm not sure that I want that." And she goes, "Oh, do you need your wife's blessing for this too?" You know?
Oh,
Oh,
snap.
classic manipulation.
Yeah, one way you want to get a man to do something, emasculate him.
She basically said the equivalent of pussy.
basically. And then she lights it for him. He takes a couple of puffs, a few puffs, and then he tells her, "Your turn." And then she goes, "Oh, I don't know." And because she needs to be in control, though, right? But then he goes, "Oh, whose blessing do you need? I promise I won't tell." Right? He goes,
Roasted.
right. But as he's saying, "I promise I won't tell," he kind of stops. He's like, "I promise I won't tell." Oh, never mind, because she did not need much goading. She was already like, so she was hitting that. She was hitting that like a fiend from The Wire. And so then he goes, "Oh boy." And so then they start they start undressing a little bit. Well, at least he does for sure. And then she tells him to, take more hits of the pipe. And he goes, "All right, well, what's the big deal?" And then she takes some more. And then, they just like kind of look around and like, oh, the room's glowing because they're high as shit. And then he goes, "My wife is the queen, did I mention that?" And then as he's like saying something about Therese, Monza kind of interrupts because now she's high as shit. She goes, Your wife likes women. She likes them a lot." And Giselle's kind of confused because his eyes are crossed, and he's like, "Wait a minute, what are we talking about?"
That's exactly what Pacey said in the audiobook. That's incredible, Jeff.
And then he basically passes out, and then she's like, "Okay, that's right." And then she goes, "Wait a minute, no. I have something I have to do." "What was it?" "Oreo."
I know. It's like she's like a little kid like remembering something. She's like, "Oh, wait a minute. Well, I'm here for something."
Yeah, that's it. And then so she kind of gets off the bed, and then she's like, she has to look at the door, and she starts like stumbling her way to it. She has to take off those like high heel shoes because she's not gonna make it there in those fucking things. And then we cut over to Morvir's perspective, and Morvir nods to Day. That's the first thing that we see, and she nods back, and that he tells her that he's gonna deal with the pair besides the royal suite. She takes the others. And then she says, "But when?" And that's the issue, right? Is timing. Timing is everything. They have the blowpipes ready to go. And then, he's looking and he sees that the door to the royal suite had entered and Vitari left, right? And Vitari, frowns up at the ceiling, but doesn't really do much. She just has to walk away. And then, he's trying to figure it out. He's like, "Okay, so I gotta kill these guards, but do I do it now? Do I wait? What's the plan? What should I do? What should I do?" Because obviously the plan has changed a little bit. And then Morvir kind of hears something in the distance, and he goes, "Are you eating?" And she goes, she's just like, "Just a bun." He's so stressed, he gets pissed. He's like, "Can you stop it? We're at work." And I'm trying to think, is an iota of professionalism too much to ask?
What's an iota?
I love how consistent. Just a very small amount.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I didn't know what it meant.
Wait, what?
An iota?
An iota is
it's
like
a Greek letter as well, isn't it?
It's a minuscule amount, yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't know that?
I'm sorry. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I don't sit there and look up Greek words. Jesus. nerds.
Adeptus Historical, we need to go over your
I'm not the
education.
Adeptus Historical of real life. Everybody knows that's George. He's actually the educated one.
So, anyway, yes. And
I love how consistent his characterization is. It's just like constantly eating, and it's just always funny like, every time.
Mhm.
You just imagine her sneaking up these buns into the attic.
I imagine she's got him stuffed in her cheeks like a fucking.
In her cheeks like a chipmunk.
Yeah.
She just shoves him down the front of her shirt and like just pads her bra with them. And then he goes, all right, there's no point in waiting. So he brings the pipe to his lips. He's getting ready to blow. And then Ario's bedchamber opens and the two women come out and they're laughing and, they pull the door closed and then they leave. They go down the corridor. They go down the corridor and they, go down the stairwell. They're out. And then the two guards by the royal suite are like, ha, 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 ha. They're laughing about something. And then Morvier shoots his first needle, hits the first guard, and the guard's like, what the fuck? And then his partner says, what happened? And he goes, I don't know, something stung me. And
I love that. I love this. Joe does such a good job at these little tiny interactions between like just completely separate characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a human thing. Ow! Well, what is it? What's wrong? Something stung me. Ow! I got hit with something too. It's just so funny, man.
Classic timing as well. And they're like, oh, it's a needle, or they just pass out.
Yeah, a needle. I feel all kinds.
I gotta get my sword out.
Yeah, and then they both collapse dead. We're assuming because he had to kill him. And then he looks over to Day. He crouches over to her and he asks her, and do we have success? She goes, of course. And he looks and he sees that they're slumped and she fine work, but that's all the work that they were trusted to do. So they gather their equipment and they ask him if they should stay to see how it goes. And he doesn't. He says, no, I see no reason to do so. The best that we can hope for is that men will die and that I have witnessed before frequently enough. So take it from me, one death is much like another. Do you have the rope? Of course. All right. It's never too soon to secure the means of escape. Caution first always. Precisely so. And so they get, she uncoils the cord from her pack. She kicks the window from the frame. They roll down the rope. Nice and easy. And Morvier says, most neatly done. What would I do without you? And then we cut over back to Shiver's perspective, it seems like. And now he's in the middle of the duel with Greylock. And the first word coming out of Greylock's mouth in this excerpt is die. And he's really swinging at Shivers. Shivers is having to use the shield, trying to parry, trying to scramble. He's fighting for his life here. And Shivers is mad at this point. He goes, what the fuck are you on about? And then Greylock goes, vengeance! And then Shivers goes confused. Vengeance for what? And then the Greylock goes, for Uffrith. And Shivers goes, what? No one got killed there. And then Greylock goes, are you sure? And then Shivers has to think. He goes, no more than a couple of people down by the docks, but that's about it. And then the Greylock goes, my brother, he was no more than 14 years old. And this, real quick, we have to, if we remember in the first Dogman chapter of Last Argument of Kings, when I think it was Dao actually that stabbed the kid in the neck at first, remember? And then kind of really had to stomp on the base of his spine, right? The neck.
Yeah, it was pretty rough, like.
It was also the death of the bell,
Well, he's like a waste of a bloody bell, Gabelle, whatever. Yes, that one. But I know they killed Dogman killed one guy, and then Grim took out the other dude. But it was Dao that took out the kid.
Yep.
And so it's
Which
funny
I think
how
is
a nice callback. I was going to say, but go ahead, Harrison.
Yeah, no, it's a great callback, and it's something that Joe, like, you don't really get to see it in the original trilogy because obviously that was like his original vision, and he's not trying to tie things back through it.
Right.
But we see it a lot in all the other books where he takes a moment in time as something that seemed insignificant at the moment, or even was laughed and joked about, like, oh, well, that was easy. We only had to kill a few people. And he takes that and he uses it as a whole story or character motivation for somebody, and not in a really unreasonable way. Clearly, Greylock went looking for Shivers or somebody or anybody he get vengeance on, or he failed and just got, exiled or abandoned. And just by his own luck, he happened to run into somebody that he considered worthy enough to take revenge on, and only because, as he says here, that he swore to his mother that he would make whoever killed her son pay. And we actually saw her mother, right? His mother.
Yeah,
it was that lady that Dogman says too, and it made you feel bad in the moment because you see this woman just crying out for her son, and it almost makes you feel like they just moved on, like, oh, sad, but it was overall a good thing, right? And this is just kind of a reminder that like every character in the story is a human being, and it's just it's very well executed, I think, for such like a minor point in this book.
Absolutely. There's there's fallout from everything because, like you said, everybody. It's real human interactions. Plot armor. I mean, we could say plot armor exists in this series, sure, like any series, but Joe does a really good job, as you said, Harrison, of tying in these little, minute but powerful human moments that exist in day-to-day life. Everyone's the center of their own universe, and all it takes is a shift in perspective, and we're seeing things from Greylock's perspective. And for Greylock, he's had a rough time, like you said, banished from the north or what have you, and then just by luck of Vitari finding him in a bar, he goes, Shivers, one of the most famous named men that was involved in Ufrith and the war against Bethod. Oh, I'm gonna get my vengeance. So it's really good. I think what Joe did here was really cool. George, you were gonna say something?
No.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say something. Okay. So
it is really cool though. Like everything's so well connected, and even though, like you said, Harrison, this is such like a small thing, it's just a distraction, or one of the distractions in this party, but it's got such a solid like through line through the series.
Yep, for sure. And Shivers goes, wait a minute, I didn't have any part in that. Black Dow did that, those killings. And Greylock, like you said, he says that Black Dow isn't here now, though. And since he swore to his mother that he's a big enough part for him to knock it out of him. So basically, Shivers was important enough to that whole Ufrith operation that he can kind of hang responsibility on Shivers' name. So they start fighting, and vengeance then, and this is what Shivers is coming in his point of view, right? A double-edged blade, if there ever was one, that you could never tell when that bastard was gonna cut you. That he tried to do the right thing just the way his brother had always told him he should. But things are just so unfair. And he tried to be a better man, hadn't he? But that's where good intentions got you sometimes, right in the shit. And then he yells out in Northern. He goes, but I just done my best. And then Greylock, he yells back, so did my brother. And then Shivers kind of ducks around the Greylock swing, smashes his face with the shield. And then there's this part where he goes, he still had his pride. That much he kept for himself. So he was damned if he was gonna be put in the mud by some dumb bastard who couldn't tell a good man from a bad man. So he felt the fury boiling up in his throat the way it used to back home in the north. When the battle was joined and he was in the thick of it, and he screams out, he goes, vengeance! I'll show you fucking vengeance! And then we cut over to Casca's perspective, and he's watching this and he's wincing. He goes, oh, these boys, it's a little real. And then one audience member, this is amazing. It looks real. I should hire them for my daughter's wedding. And then
that's one of the best lines ever.
And then Casca goes, yeah, it's true. They were putting on a good show. Really too good, actually. He's noticing like even little things when they're circling like very like carefully, and then like occasional jabbing, and then furious, concentrated caution of men who knew the slightest slip could mean death. And so then uh, everyone's like looking on, but so tense. Before they were yelling obscenities, now they stopped. Now they're just, oh my god, they're like gasping and everything. And Casca and everybody here feels that they feel genuine murderous rage. And the band who was following along with this duel, that now they're like doing really well. Now they got like they're doing like a score of an action scene in a movie. I can't even describe it really necessarily so, but basically with what's going on with Shivers and Greylock and how they keep going at each other and knocking each other off their feet almost, or slashing and stabbing at each other, Casca thinks that something tells him that they're gonna leave more than 2 bodies behind tonight, 2 corpses. And so then we cut over to Monza's perspective, and we kind of do another continuation recycling, where it's the corpses of the 2 guards lay beside the door. And Monza goes, okay. So she goes towards the other door that Ariel's in. She grabs the doorknob, turns it, and she goes, why isn't this door opening? She goes, oh, that's right, I have to push. And then she almost falls in. And then she sees Prince Ario splayed out on the bed, naked as a bird, with the mask still on. And he's drunk and everything. He goes, more. And he grabs a bottle of wine. He's about to start drinking it. And she goes, well, I hope we haven't tired you out already. And he goes, I can rise to the occasion. He starts like touching his dick and everything. What?
Rise to the occasion.
And then he goes, nah, too many clothes. So she starts shrugging off her fur. Then he tells her to take off the gloves. He doesn't care for them. She goes, yeah, neither do I. And she takes off the gloves, and then she doesn't realize that her hand still kind of looks a little messed up, right? With the scar and the pinky sticking up. And Ario's just staring at it. He goes, what the fuck? And then she goes, oh yeah, I forgot about this. But then Ario, the pervert he goes, a crippled hand? Ooh, how exotic.
Oh, that's so stupid.
And then what she does, as she gets closer to him, she takes off his mask and flings it. And he goes, ooh, how rude. I must teach you a lesson. And she goes, maybe I'll teach you one. He goes, ooh, look at her, brave to bandy words with me. Very bold. Few women are as bold as that. And he says to her, I almost feel as if I know you. And he's squeezing her ass and everything. And then she grabs the corner of her mask with her right hand, and she goes, know me? And her other hand, she slides it behind her back and grabs the knife. She goes, of course you know me. And then she pulls her mask away. And then Ario, he looks at her face, and he's smiling, and then it kind of it dies. He goes, wait a minute, and his eyes start wide, and then he starts to scream. He goes, somebody! And then we cut over. We're back to Friendly's perspective. And then, he's a crescent moon mask guy goes 100 scales on this next throw. And then Friendly goes 100 scales. It means nothing. And then he gives, Crescent Moon the dice. And then Crescent Moon, he gets to rattling. He goes, come on, you shits. And then he rolls it. And then it's 5 and 6. And then Crescent Moon's friends are cheering. And then they seem to be cheering, but then he goes 5 and 6, house wins. And then people often forget that any one score is just as likely as any other, even the same score. So it's not entirely a shock that Crescent Moon lost his sense of perspective. So he says, you cheating bastard, the Crescent Moon guy. And Friendly kind of frowned. He goes, huh, interesting. In safety, I would have just cut him. But we are outside of safety. We're supposed to have control. We're supposed to maintain control. So he made himself forget the warm handle of his cleaver. And he goes 5 and 6. The dice don't lie. So was it 5 and 6, or did they have a misunderstanding of what this roll meant at this time? Because we know 5 and 6 before meant the house won. So do you know what I mean?
We don't really get the rules of the game, do we? So it's kind of hard to
It's kind of like what's that? They have a square. They have squares board, and then they have that weird union game, right?
Oh, you're not talking about real life. You're talking about okay, I got you. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I just meant like there are some games inside of Joe will reuse animals and plant names, and then also at the same time make up other stuff, which I think is great fantasy writing. You use things that are familiar, and then also you can make up shit because why not?
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
And I like he doesn't give us like the full fucking rule set for whatever this is. They could be playing Yahtzee or something for all we know.
For real. And so then, Friendly tells him the dice don't lie, and then Crescent Moon he grabs Friendly's wrist, and then he leans forward all drunk, and he goes, "I think your dice are loaded." Wrong thing to say to Friendly. Friendly felt his face go slack. Everything got tight, and he goes, "You think my dice are what?" And then the guy pokes Friendly, poke, poke, poke. He goes, "Your dice are liars." And then he goes, "My dice are what?" And then literally the next sentence is Friendly's cleaver split the crescent mask in half and the skull underneath it wide open. And his knife stabbed the man with the ship over his face through his mouth, and the point emerged from the back of his head. Friendly stabbed him again and again, squelch, squelch, the grip of the blade turning slippery. A woman gave a long, shrill scream. What the fuck is happening? Friendly was vaguely aware that everyone in the hall was gaping at him. 4 times 3 times 4 of them, or more or less. And then he flings the dice table over, sending glasses, everything flying. The guy with the fox mask was staring. Like, what the fuck? Even though he has blood and brains all over his mask. And then Friendly, he leans over into his face and he goes, "Apologize! Apologize to my fucking dice!"
It's one of the most iconic moments that
Harrison,
Friendly absolutely letting go.
I mean, it absolutely lives down in meme infamy on House of the Meme Maker.
It does. Harrison, do you want to try that line? The last one?
Apologize to my fucking dice!
Oh, Friendly has lost his shit. We know him to be an even keeled, calm, cool, collected kind of guy. But I guess the minute you say that his dice are big old fat fibbers, he's
triggered.
He's triggered. He gets real triggered. So then we cut right back to Monza's point of view, and we continue on from Ario saying, "Somebody!" And then he stops talking because Monza's knife had gone into where she stabbed him right where his thigh met his body.
Oh,
just
God.
beside his wilting cock, and was buried in him to the grip. And he gave a hideous, high-pitched shriek. Then Monza's other knife punched in under his ear and slid out the far side of his neck. And then Ariel kind of stays there for him. His eyes are bulging. One hand is trying to touch her shoulder, but very weak. The other one is fumbling at the handle of the blade. And he, there's blood coming out, him from 2 wounds at least. And then he's teetering back, walking towards back the wall. And then she whispers, 3 dead, 4 left. And then it says that his bloody thigh slapped against the windowsill of the window nearby, and he fell, head smashing against the stained glass and knocking the window wide. He tumbled through and out into the night. Weesh. And then we cut over back to Shiver's perspective, and he's still in the middle of the duel with Greylock. Club comes over, and then his Greylock's swing left his side wide open, so Shivers ducked under the swing and then whipped a heavy sword around, and it cut into Greylock's forearm with a thump, hacked it off clean, and then chopped it right into the side of his stomach. At this point, the club clattered. Everyone is Greylock's arm just got cut off and he got fucking stabbed in the stomach. And somebody laughed. Another person kind of shrieked and they go, how did they do that? Like they think it's still fucking fake.
Is these special effects? You come to see a show and you don't know what you're gonna see. Like,
It just makes you wonder, right? Like, how many of us would just totally, especially like intoxicated, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many of us would actually be like, "Oh my god, there's danger here"? Like, you're like, "Wow, this is incredible! I've never seen a show." I think most of us really would be that way, especially if we're like, "All right, guys, we're gonna have a party." Everyone's already wasted, anyways, you know.
Yeah. And then it adds when Greylock he starts screaming like if he stubbed his foot, right? He's like, fuck, it hurts. Where's my and then he kind of just like is trying to reach around with the one arm he has left, slips, falls down to one knee and starts to scream. And then Shivers, swings his sword right into his mask, right in the forehead, and they just cut his the roar off, and it left a huge dent, and Greylock toppled over and just died. And then the band kind of just like played a few last notes. Then the music died. And then there was some vague yelling across from the gaming hall, which we know that's from Friendly's table. The yard was silent. And then Shivers kind of just stares at Greylock's corpse, and his fury had melted away. And now he's starting to feel scared. He's starting to feel creeping horror. And then he says to himself, he goes, why do things like this always happen to me? And then Casca comes up to him and says, because you're a bad, bad man. Now, before I go to this last part that ends this chapter, I want to say something. Shivers is talking out loud. He says, why do things like this happen to me? I think I'm going to correctly assume that he would say this in his northern tongue, but Casca understood him and responded to him. So I found that interesting.
Well, that's a good point, Jeff. I think it makes sense that Casca would know Northern, or at least enough to get by.
Maybe, yeah, probably.
So,
yeah.
Unless he misunderstood. How funny would that be? He misunderstood him completely.
Yeah.
He thought he said something else.
Yeah. Or it could be a very, 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 very slight continuity error, just by because he is steering. Yeah, maybe whatever. But I did kind of know that you would think in a moment where your emotions are in such turmoil, you were just yelling at this guy that you just killed in Northern, you probably would have said something like that in your native tongue. But I mean, what do I know? It was just an idea.
And Casca's reply as well, it's simple enough that you'd think it's something in a language where he doesn't fully grasp it. He's like, you're a bad, bad man.
You're a bad mamma jamma. And then Shivers, he kind of feels a shadow fall across his face, and he kind of looks up when a naked body crashes down headfirst into the circle. So, and then the crowd that already had some blood covered on him was now completely showered in blood. And that ends the chapter there. Boys, how do you rate Sex and Death?
You want to go first, Harrison?
I got to go with a 9 out of 9. This is
amazing.
Notoriously one of the best chapters in the entire series. I don't know how good we covered it, but it's got some of the most iconic moments, iconic lines. It's got some of these. It highlights almost every single character inside of this group, at least the POVs. It builds up and transitions between people so much, and it gets kind of confusing, for some people jumping around a lot, but it's done so well with how the lines connect and how everyone kind of gets this creeping suspicion that there's an issue. There's the amount of comedy in here is crazy. I never get not satisfied whenever Monza kills Ario. It's just got to be one of the most purely entertaining, well written, and compiled chapters, especially since there's so much build up. It's just excellently done. So 9 out of 9 for me.
Nice, George.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with a 9 out of 9 as well.
Damn.
It's interesting to see almost all of the so far introduced POV characters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice to see them all, they're all bouncing around between them. And it's nice to see Joe's writing style developing where he's comfortable with writing so many POVs in a chapter and having to be so chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just it. Just it's good to see it coming along. And obviously, the bit with Friendly is the funniest fucking part in all of the book.
Yeah, Friendly losing his shit was one for the record books for sure.
It's just so funny. Like he's like, he can take all the personal insults he wants, and then the second you say something about his dice, he's like, "What? The fuck did you just say?" Oh dear.
So funny.
What about you, Jeff?
I'll give it a 9 out of 9. I have to go with the trifecta. I mean, come
Yeah.
on. This chapter, I mean, was fantastic. I mean, like both of you said, the initial setup, everyone's nerves is frayed, and then the nerves are frayed. I'm sorry, and then the feeling that something's wrong, but can't quite place what it is that's wrong. Just know that there's too many people. Something's just off. The realization as to, oh, this is why this is all wrong, and it's because Giselle's fucking fat head showed up, and then and then just the chaos that happened, because it's not only just that, but it's the other extenuating factors, like Casca thinking he's doing right by Friendly by giving him the dice table, not realizing he's a psychopath when it comes to this fucking dice. And then, Shivers and Greylock, that whole thing that we thought was going to go nice and well. Shivers found a kindred spirit. He found another Northman. And it turns out, nope, this man was out for blood, and just everything. And then Monza being so high off her ass that she couldn't kill Ario correctly by killing him and leaving him in the bed. No, he has to go fucking free falling out the damn window, alerting everybody as to what happened. I mean, it just has it all. It is just chef's kiss. And like you both mentioned, with the changing in perspectives, we see this with the major POVs, but this is probably what's gonna lead him into like the Heroes and Red Country and other things, where the little people chapters, this is like his test run, I think. And so I just 9 out of 9 fingers for me.
Excellent. We are on the same page once more.
Excellent. Well, that was one hell of a chapter, right, boys? So we'll move on to our next segment, which is Character Spot. And, boys, who will we shine this lovely ray of light on?
We're going to double up this time because there are two characters. One of them we couldn't really do until now, and the other one we couldn't really do until now. So we're just going to do both. We're going to do Ario and Greylock. Starting with Ario.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, he is
pompous prick.
He's a pompous prick. He's a pretty weak character. We don't get much other than the fact that he's a spoiled brat, and he's basically like Giselle before he was humbled. And maybe he would change if he was humbled, but he did not survive this encounter, so fuck him.
Fuck him.
He doesn't got a lot going on. I mean, he's really just, he thinks he's gonna get everything. He thinks his dad's gonna hand him the whole world. He's a trust fund kid. So
he definitely is a trust fund kid. A kid. Yeah.
Like kind.
I said the same thing.
German.
Oh no! You! I didn't mess up any words. You messed up the words.
I bet you if I play that back, you're gonna say you said kind. That's why I heard it.
Well, you're gonna edit me saying it over and over again now in the episode.
Nah, Goofy, you wait. Go ahead though.
I don't have much else to say about Ario himself. What do you guys think?
Yeah, he's just a bit. He's like a fucking like a Walmart version of Ladislaw.
Walmart version. He's the boring version of Ladislaw.
He's the boring version. You don't get to see much of Ario. We see him in the first chapter. We see him here, and that's it.
Yeah, and you know what? You know where he kind of instead of Ladislaw, because Ladislaw was very, very outgoing. He was obnoxious, right? Very loud and stuff. You know where I see Ario? Who I see in Ario? I see Giselle. If he was to continue on the trajectory from the Blade itself, as if he was still the son of whatever adoptive father he had, and would have purchased, they purchased an officer and whatever the fucking thing in the position in the military, would have eventually become a major or something, and then just been like that kind of self-centered, entitled, but very aloof. We remember how he was in the beginning, right? Very nonchalant, or at least put on the air of nonchalant, just didn't care, right?
Mm.
And then obviously Artie, the fellowship for the one true ring and all that, like all and him being the king. Obviously, that filled in his characterization and made him the character we know him to be. But there is that other fork in the other path in the fork of the road of what Giselle could have been, and I think Ario is a very good mirror of that.
Yeah, well put, Jeff.
Yeah, I can see that.
Let's move on to the more interesting character, Greylock.
Greylock, yes, we kind of talked about him a little bit, with how human
not
he
a lot
is.
of screen time either, right? Not a lot of
Yeah,
screen.
he's in what, 2 chapters?
Barely.
But he's definitely he's definitely, this is his last gambit, right? Like, he's not really ironically, it's my belief that he's fighting for nothing more than his pride, like he's not really going for, like, he says, oh, I'm doing it because my mother said, I promised my mother that, but that's really just his own pride talking. And that's exactly why Shivers is here too. He's like, well, I at least have my pride. They're doing the exact same thing, except Greylock just is the sad version. Like, he didn't, if Greylock was the one to run into Monza, I'm just saying, maybe it'd turn out
he could have
exactly the
easily
same.
ended up that way.
Yeah.
Completely opposite.
Yeah, what's to stop? Like Monza, if she would have saw Greylock before Shivers, I definitely could see her hiring him instead. Just because he's huge, he's probably a good fighter and all this stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Sure. And also in Greylock's, in his corner here, it's kind of sad because he's clearly like poor as fuck here, and whenever he's fighting Shivers, he's just, I don't think he's fighting at his best. On purpose. It's kind of like I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna die, and this is all I have left. And I mean, who knows what happens to his mom? I mean, we don't know.
We don't know.
And maybe he left because he had nowhere else to go, so he thought he'd just try to start over. And maybe he failed at starting over like Shivers did, and then he was gonna let it all go and just become a beggar or whatever, and then he, like you said, Vitari found him and said, hey, blah, 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 blah. And then he get in there and said, Shivers. He's like, oh my God, this is my opportunity. I just, there's just a lot of little, a lot of things to think about when it comes to him and his character, and things that you, in a normal story, just wouldn't even consider.
Right. Which, speaking of that, Harrison, something you pointed out, I think 2 episodes ago, maybe 3, I think it was 2, when they were doing the hiring for the entertainers, right? That we know that there was a shift in Greylock's demeanor once he learned who Shivers was, right? And then when Shivers tells everybody, oh yeah, he's in, Casca goes, are you sure? He looks a little, I don't know. There's a look on his face that doesn't make me too happy about him. And then it's like, get some fucking brio in. But Casca, like you said, Harrison, I think at that time, you said, Casca's correctly assessing the situation here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and to be fair to Casca, and the reason why he's so good at reading people, because he's been in a lot of different places, and he's been himself in those places. Casca's been where Greylock is, probably.
And he's probably been where Shivers, I bet.
I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, honestly, he is exactly where Greylock is at.
Oh, yes, you're right. You're right. Seeking vengeance.
Seeking vengeance, and then, Greylock just has the bones to follow through, I guess.
Yeah, bones or circumstances.
Yep. And
right.
It's just, Greylock's just interesting. I mean, what do you guys think about him? I've been talking this whole time.
Well, I mean, I mentioned, but George, go ahead.
I think you guys have perfectly summed it up there, like, just perfectly.
Well, you got to throw something in there. I know you're sleepy, but come on, man.
No, you said everything there is to be said. I mean,
God
just
damn it, I took everything.
For him.
Talk about the color of his hair or something. Come on, man.
I took everything.
That is cool that there's that tiny little detail where, it's unnecessary. You don't really need that. You could have come up with any name for him, but yeah, fuck it. He's got white hair, whatever.
Gray hair.
Grey hair, whatever. Like you say, Harrison, he's extremely sympathetic. And he's doing exactly the same thing that Shivers and pretty much everyone in this book is doing, is trying to get some piece of revenge for the wrongs that have been handed to them. Even though Shivers wasn't really fucking directly involved, like it is a bit twisted, but yeah.
Yeah, so George, do you think that? So, what do you think about Greylock deciding to pursue his vengeance against Shivers when by Shivers' own admission and everything, he wasn't really involved in it? That if anything, if he's going to try to seek vengeance out against anybody, it should be against Black Owl. Now, do you think it's a matter of, well, I got stuck here in Stereo just due to the choices I made in my life, therefore I'm just going to attempt to get it via whatever's closest to me? Or do you think that maybe there's an internal voice that he has that says, I can't do anything against Black Owl because it's fucking Black Owl, and now something
Well, I
drops in
think
his lap?
he is literally stuck in that situation. It's the same as Shivers was. Like, how the fuck do you get back to the north? Like, is there any fucking boats going there, or like can you fucking save the money for it when you're on the streets and you get mugged every couple of days?
Well, I just wonder how he got out of the why'd he left the north in the first place? Do you know?
We don't know. It could be anything. He could have been following Shivers there. We don't know.
Man, please.
I mean, I don't know why he'd follow Shivers there when Dogman's in Uffrith anyway. But
right, exactly.
I don't know. What do you think, Jeff?
I said what I think. I said that Greylock.
No, about that.
About that. I think he probably knew that it's Dogman, Grim, and Black Owl that did the whole thing with Uffrith, and that's who he should have tried to seek, try to get his revenge on. But then he realized he couldn't do anything. Like, I don't think Greylock is beating any one of them in a fight. I don't think that Greylock would be able to have planned some kind of, cloak and dagger kind of mission to get at either one of them. Obviously, Grim's dead. We know that, but still. And then I think he kind of just accepted the circumstances of his life, decided to move to Styria to get away from everything, and then just fell into his lap that, somebody from Uffrith was there.
All for the worst as well. Poor Greylock.
All for the worst.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, homie.
May your locks gray in the grave.
Oh, man. All right. Well, that was our character spot for this episode. It was a two-parter, Ario and Greylock. But now we go on to our second and final chapter read-through, and that's entertainment. We start off from the perspective of Shivers again, and first line is, all at once things got confused. And so people were screaming out things. Somebody said, the king! And then people were like falling over themselves to the point where Shivers, somebody pushed at Shivers, and the Shivers pushes at them. They sprawl over Greylock's corpse. Somebody says, it's Ario! Then murder, blah! There's so many screams going on. And then out of nowhere, we realize that the entertainers have gone nuts too. So one of the Gurkish dancers slits a man's belly open, right? And then and then we see somebody else get stabbed in the leg behind him, apparently. And then panic is spreading. One of the jugglers starts flinging knives.
He was mentioned, wasn't he? The fucking the knife throwers.
I mean, knowing what the kind of people that they hired, you already know. Like, as soon as they somebody died and they saw something else died, they're like, "Oh, this is my cue. Start killing people." They
they haven't been given any instructions apart from that. Just
entertain, and they're like, "Hey, when shit hits the fans, you better be ready." And they're like, "Shit hit the fan. Go, kill everyone."
It's like, be ready for what? Kill who? Kill what? And then somebody grabs Shivers' arm. Shivers instinctively just elbows that person in the face, turns around, turns out it's Mork, the pipe player from the band. And then out of nowhere, Shivers can see from his other eye, from the side eye, his peripheral vision, there was a loud whomp and a glare of orange through the heaving bodies. So somebody's screaming out, "Fire, water, juggler, help, Knights of the Body!" It's just all this kind of stuff. And then Casca comes out of nowhere. He goes, "Back!" And then Shivers is like, "Huh? What?" And then a knife keeps flickering. A knife flickered out of nowhere. And then Casca, he sidesteps a sword thrust. Apparently, he whipped out his cane, and a long blade came out of it, and it stabbed the guy in the neck with it. And so Casca's doing his business. Then one of Ario's guys nearly caught Casca with the sword, but then Gerpy loomed up behind and smashed his lute over the man's head. And so we know that the wooden body shattered, but we know that the lute had an axe blade in it, so it split the guy's shoulder right to his chest. And then another flame went up. People are stumbling and crumbling away. And then there's just so much. And then out of nowhere, the crowd parted suddenly like Moses in the Dead Sea, because the incredible Ronco is coming straight to Shivers, and he's covered in fire, the psychopath.
Clearly, he wasn't as professional as they thought he was.
And Shivers had to kind of like bounce him away with his shield, and Ronco crashes into the wall, and then into that wall, and goes into another wall, and goes to another wall, and there's just globs of like liquid fire going around everywhere. The flames are spreading up everywhere. Shivers is like, what the fuck? And then Ronco at this point is just rolling on the ground. He's still burning, and he's screeching. Ugh. He's making a thin screech like a
what a way to go.
Yowza. And then there was no time to make sense of anything, right? All that mattered was who lived and who died. And then, so a couple of the guards were trying to force their way through the press. One of them chopped Barty or Kummel down with the sword.
Whichever one it was.
Yeah, because they're twins, I believe. Caught one of Ario's gentlemen on the backswing, took part of his skull off. Just shit is going down. And then whoever was left from Barty or Kummel stabbed a knife into the top of the swordsman's head. Weesh. And then we have another armored guard shouldering his way towards Shivers. And then Shivers has to like basically kill this guy. And then he chops his sword. Turns out he accidentally killed a woman, Shivers. Just stabbed her right in the chest, and yikes. So we know he's feeling guilty about this. The courtyard is straight up chaos, though. He cannot keep track of what's going on, right? And then Casca, yells out the smoking hall. And then not sure what he's referring to there. I think is he telling Shivers to go there or what?
I think it's intentionally meant to be kind of confusing. Like, he just says the smoking hole, but he's not really drawing attention to, like, is there later guards in there, or we go in there, or whatever.
Right. Well, they get through a doorway, and then it's just Casca and Shivers. And then Shivers goes, well, what now? And then Casca just kind of stares at him and goes, what makes you think I've got the fucking answers? And then Shivers asks him, like, what about the others? And then Casca goes, look, we've reached the point of every man for himself, right? Where's Monza? And then he, Shivers is kind of thinking out loud. He goes, well, if they'll get in by the gaming hall, won't they? And then something's crashing through a window. And then, more fire. And then Shivers kind of looks for Casca. I guess he lost track of him, can't see him anymore. And then he can just hear some voices and some screaming. And then he hears something... like a bull going mad in a burning building. It says, my dice, bastard. Oh my god. And some people are just screaming for help and stuff. Somebody says, upstairs, the king is upstairs, which is confusing. Which everyone's very confused about, right? And then so Shivers realized that Monza is upstairs. So somebody's trying to bust through the door. Shivers kind of cracks this guy in the face with his shield. And then he grabs a lamp up, right? And then he flings it at the wall, at this group of people that are pouring into the smoking hall. And then it catches the wall on fire. And then everyone's like, now they're catching on fire. And Shivers is, he just starts going through a doorway, and he starts up the stairs, and then his legs are burning, he's tired as fuck, so much stress, right? And then he turns around, he turns into a corridor, and a man comes barreling out of the corridor as well, like as if they just came out of a room, right? And they almost ran into each other, and they ended up staring into each other's mask. And then it's one of the guys with the polished breastplate. So this is like Union Guardsmen, we can imagine. And then this guy tries to grab Shivers with his free hand. So Shivers butts this guard in the face on instinct, breaks his nose, and then kind of hits him in the hip with his shield, and then gives him a knee right to the nuts, and then swings him around and throws him down the stairs. So Shivers, so this guy, whoever this guy is, Shivers, he just had a rough go of it. Shivers, he keeps going upstairs. And then he keeps hearing people saying, "Protect the king, and he goes, "What the fuck is going on?" And so then he gets to the floor where they're supposed to be at. He sees the bodies, and he hears coughing and smoke and everything. He's like, "What the fuck's going on?" And then he looks in through a corridor and he sees a woman, bent over, black hair hanging. It's Monza. So he runs towards her. He keeps low under the smoke because the fire has spread like crazy now, and then he grabs her, and all she does is goes, "Fire." And then he goes, come here. He grabs her. They get to the end of the corridor, and then he remembers that the Cardatis, it's 3 sides surrounded by land, but one side was on the 8th canal, right? Yep. So he kicks the window open. He looks at it, and he goes, "Oh, fuck me. It's a long way down towards the water." And then Monza goes, "Ario's dead." And then while she's talking, Shivers just kind of grabs her. And then she goes, "What do you do?" And then he just launches her out the window. And then he took off his shield and he flung it at 2 guys that were coming down the corridor towards him. And so he just climbs on the window ledge and he just jumps. And then, the wind is rushing up at him, smoke's rushing up at him. And then next thing you know, boom, hit the water. And it's cold water. We know cold water. And now he's flailing because he don't know which way is up, right? It's dark water, it's night, he doesn't know what's happening. And then a hand grabs him under the jaw. It pulls him and his face out of the water into the night air. And it's Monza. And she's telling him to be, shut up, be quiet, be still. And that, now they're just kind of like hugging each other. They're kind of, are they under a bridge or something? Yes, they're under a bridge. And they're just being quiet. And then they could kind of see Cardati's House of Leisure and the fire just shooting up into the sky. Flames are crackling. It's just, this is chaos. And then, Shivers at this point, he's cold, he's freaked out, went through a whole battle with Greylock and everything else. So he just starts going, shit. And then Monza has to try to like calm him down, saying, shh, be quiet, it's okay. And then he just,
little guy.
Yeah. And then she asks him and she goes, "What happened?" And he just couldn't even look at her. He goes, "I have no fucking idea." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the chapter. Holy shit.
I love the fact that, like, from the beginning of the last chapter to the end of this one, it's like 25 minutes or something stupid like that. It's like, it's so fucking fast paced. You really do feel that way when Shivers is like, "I've got no fucking idea what just happened." Like, we don't either. It's funny.
Yeah, everything just fell apart. Harrison, what do you think about it?
I mean, it's like one of those chaos chapters. It's like when you're reading it, it's like you're in the zone. You're not sure what's going to happen. I love how Casca just bails on him. He's immediately like,
Casca's just gone.
He's like, bye.
He's like, "You think I got the answers? Okay, no, I don't. No. I'm not babysitting you. Bye." And then he just leaves. But I do find it very interesting that Shivers is like his grounding point and what he needs to do is Monza. Like it does show that basically he really is just there for her, because he could have just left and saved his own skin, Yeah. And he was like, "No, I got to get to Monza." And it's kind of like it's kind of sweet, but also like they kind of are pretty dysfunctional. So, but it does add a layer there.
I suppose that could be like just the difference between way the Northerners are and the way that the Styrians are. Like there's kind of like a loyalty to your chief.
That is a good point there.
Yeah.
Whereas everyone else, like you say, they're just like, Morpheus like, oh, well, that was in the last chapter, but like, Morpheus like, oh, well, our job's gone, let's go. Friendly's fucking busy killing everyone in the fucking gambling hall. Costco, like you say, he's just like, nah, I'm not, I don't get paid enough for this shit, I'm out. And God knows where Vitari went.
God knows where Vitari went. Yeah, she disappeared.
I bet Vitari immediately left. I bet she immediately left as soon as like the situation with the king went down. She's like, no, I'm out. Fuck this.
She's like, fuck this. She's out. Bye.
So I reckon I'm going to rate this one. I'm going to give it a 5 because it's just kind of like the end of the last chapter. They could have easily just like stuck these two together and it would have been good. Not even that long. So I reckon, yeah, I'm just going to give it a 5.
Give it a 5. Okay.
I reckon I'm going to give it a. I think I'm going to give it a 2 out of 9.
Oh,
Like, I agree. I think it could have just been stuck on at the end, at the last chapter, just made a really long one, made it really intense, but it kind of breaks it up in the terms of like the story and book. It doesn't really matter, but in terms of like the situation and story, it's just one of those chaos chapters, and I'm not a huge fan of them anyways. And whenever I read it, I'm just like, yeah, I'm reading this chapter because it's part of the book. I don't really feel like I get much out of it, other than the first time you read it, you're like, oh, this is crazy, whoa! But like after that, it's just one of my least favorite ones. I even forgot this one was even here. That's why last week we said only doing the next one because I thought it was all part of one thing.
Right. I get what you're saying.
So, but that's my opinion.
I always thought that as well. I thought it was all the way up until they jumped out the window.
Yeah, I thought it was a big chapter. Yeah, same. Yeah, I mean, for that, sense, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 9. But again, only because I think George, you said it. I agree. It should have just been included at the end of the Sex and Death. I just think that would have been like let it go on a little bit longer, but it's one full complete chapter. Sex and Death is still one complete chapter, but this kind of just feels like a quick little epilogue within a book, almost in a way. So yeah, I mean, 4 out of 9. We just get the continuation / ending of the chaos that transpired already.
Exactly. It's just more of the same, isn't it?
So, I mean, I'm not complaining about more of the same. I just think it could have been in one chapter. But, I mean, what do we know? We're not the writers, So.
Yeah, you don't know shit, Jeff.
You're right. I don't know. I don't know shit. I'm stupid. All right. Alrighty, well, that's the end of our, like I said, our final chapter read-through for the episode. And we don't have a community interaction segment this week, although by the time this episode has come out, we should have done some updates to the YouTube page, but we'll see. Anyway,
I mean, I've added some of the episodes. If you want to follow along on YouTube as well, yeah, we're slowly uploading the episodes there. It's just a very long and tedious job.
It is. And then hopefully at least one or two, possibly, we'll see, maybe one of our extracurricular videos will have been posted as well on the YouTube page. But, other than that, that's our show, everyone. And as usual, we want to thank you all for listening and supporting this podcast. As you know, this is a passion project for the three of us, and your support really does mean a lot.
Join us next week as we cover Vengeance, then, and Downwards.
And make sure you follow us on all of our social media and visit our website. It's circleoftheworld.com.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any podcast app that you use. And please make sure to rate and review this podcast. Thank you all again for listening.
Apologize to my fucking guys!